So we talked about this on the podcast a little bit, just in case you missed it. Inside Ubisoft from Insider Gaming, he is reporting, this is from Tom Henderson, tons of accurate reporting and leaks and stuff. He has those connections for sure. But he reported all of this, and there's a bunch of information in here. Apparently, there are a lot of people that are very, very worried. Ubisoft, the sixth largest video game company by employees, is at a crossroads. Internally, morale is at an all-time low, and employees fear that the publisher could be next to see a major restructuring, inevitably resulting in a higher number of people losing their jobs. A lack of job security is the current feeling felt across the industry, but as Ubisoft leadership continues its never-ending ambition to pursue trends, it usually resulting in wasted resources or lackluster results, it won't be them shown the door if the company needs to reduce costs. Absolutely, and this has been the age-old problem for Ubisoft for sure. We shall see if they land with layoffs soon, but they have a couple big games that we're going to talk about in just a second that I think is they could potentially really help them out. At one point in late 21 to early 22, Ubisoft had around a dozen battle royale games in development. Many of these projects ultimately failed to captivate players during playtesting and were canceled. A dozen. Like, if this doesn't define throwing crap at the wall to see what sticks, I don't know what does. Like, there was no vision. There was no, we have the concept for the battle royale that's going to win and take Fortnite down. There wasn't anything like that. They were like, we'll just make 12 and see if they work. Baffling. It's baffling. There was also the news that they were doubling down on Ubisoft Quartz, which was their NFT platform that now is completely defunct and like gone belly up, and that they've seemingly walked away from. And that was a whole other thing. I mean, as you can see, it's discussed here. Battle Royale games weren't the only Ubisoft trend-chasing impulse, though. In late 21, the company announced Ubisoft Quartz in its attempt to take advantage of the then NFT boom. The announcement was publicly slammed, and internally, employees felt embarrassed to even be associated with a company that made such a prolific out-of-touch announcement. 2 years on, it seems like Ubisoft has realized that NFTs are not the money-making tech it thought it was. Still, the company continues to quietly work in the NFT and Web3 sphere on projects like Champions Tactics, Grimoria Chronicles, which, I mean, they already have it going, so they're just going to ride that out. The publisher's desires currently lie with live service and extraction-based shooters. Insider Gaming understands that at least 3 major extraction-based shooters are in development at the publisher. The Division Heartland, released to be TBA, or to be announced, not to be announced. Far Cry's Project Maverick, with a tentative release date of 25, and a new IP set in World War II that is forecasted to be released between 2026 and 27. Whether or not all these games will be released remains to be seen, but for those working on the projects, it's feared that once again the boat may have sailed by the time they are released. It's just the tale with Ubisoft recently is that they've just lost touch with the creative force that they used to be. They used to really be good at coming out with quality projects. I know it's crazy, but there was a period of time back in like the late 2000s, early 2010s, where their releases were pretty consistently in the running for Game of the Year. And that wasn't like a controversial thing to say. It wasn't like, you know, now when I bring up the fact that like Assassin's Creed Odyssey was nominated for Game of the Year, people are like, yeah, but it shouldn't have been though. That's cringe. The fact that any Ubisoft game gets nominated is awful. It's like just suggesting that a Ubisoft game could potentially win a Game of the Year award is like a cringe take, which is wild. It's crazy. It's crazy. But there was a time when that was reasonable. Like it was like, yeah, Ubisoft makes some great games. I mean, you played Assassin's Creed 2. That game was a banger. That's crazy. But nowadays, they've fallen pretty far. And as you can see here in these discussions, it's just a tale of throwing as much crap at the wall as possible with a dozen battle royale games in development at a single time, hoping one of them sticks. And as we all know, none of them stuck. Nothing worked. This was wasted time. Hundreds of millions of dollars, at least, down the drain for nothing. For nothing. This is why investors have said for years that Ubisoft could have the number of employees they have, the number of studios they have, the number of projects they're running, and see no difference in the amount of revenue they bring in and profits that they generate. Zero difference, because their management is so like diluted with some of this stuff that they just waste so much money on all these different projects that they don't need to waste money on. Like anybody that's reasonably in touch with the gaming industry could tell them instantaneously, no, the odds of one of these working out is like negligible. Like all of these projects are a bad idea. But they still do it. They still do it. Time and time and time and time again. Time and time and time again. Constant delays and mismanagement. So in recent years, there's been one thing that you can probably count on with the Ubisoft game. It's inevitable delay. It's a frustration that's been publicly felt and internally, mostly boiling down to unrealistic internal deadlines and poor management. One of the most well-known examples of constant delays is Skull and Bones, the decade-long in-development pirate game that has seen 6 public delays. Public is important to note because it's received a handful of internal delays as well, with like entire reboots, restarting development. I think it has had at least 3, maybe even 4 at this point, game directors through its life, which is wild. Most games have 1. This game has had 4. Like, it's crazy that they can't get this figured out. The game is estimated to have cost in the region of $200 million to produce, a figure that is not expected to be made back, sources said. At least they don't expect to make it back. For the most part, delays stemmed from a plague of power-hungry managers trying to elevate their careers. The constant changes in vision created a rotten atmosphere, with some developers confused as to what they were meant to be doing on a day-to-day basis. And you can see the remnants of that. You absolutely can. Some days, quote, I would just be sat there watching YouTube videos, said one former employee who worked on the project, because they had nothing else to do. No direction, no clear vision, nothing, just wasted time. And like, he's admitting he would just sit there, watch YouTube videos while on the clock getting paid. And this is how these games waste so much money, with poor managers. A poor manager that's not able to properly outline what needs to happen and what the goals are and what type of game they're making. It just ends up wasting money in wasted time and wasted resources. Absolutely. They were watching Luke. I do know I have a lot of people that watch my videos. I would not blame, honestly, people. I wouldn't blame Ubisoft employees for not like wanting to watch some of my more recent videos taking down like Assassin's Creed Valhalla and stuff like that, because it's got to be awkward being like, I work for this company and I like working for this company, but now I'm gonna watch a video on somebody trashing our latest game. Like, it's got to be a little awkward. But maybe it's like cathartic, because the person they're watching is saying all the stuff that they've wanted to say publicly to their boss, but that they can't. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Let's be honest. Every big company is like that. I've spent some good time wasting companies' time. Yeah, it is a thing with big companies. There is usually a good amount of bloat that needs to be trimmed, because often they just have too many people for what actually needs to be done. I'm always blown away, like when I like drive through Denver. Oh, thank you. I'll drive through like Denver, and you go through the big streets and you look at all the skyscrapers, and the entire building is owned or leased by like one company. And I just can't help but wonder, like, do they really need all that space to do what they do? Like, and it's usually like a company that isn't even, it's not like an accounting firm where they need thousands of accountants. It's like, you know, the headquarters for a chain of car washes, and they have like a 4-story building, and then the next building over is 12 stories, and it's a like headquarters for a coffee company. Like, and I'm like, do you really need all those people? Maybe, but it seems like there's a lot of bloat involved with these things. As they go on, eventually though, the dust finally settled and the foundations were finally laid on what Skull and Bones was going to be. Internal delays then became public delays as Ubisoft Singapore faced a series of unrealistic deadlines. Unfortunately, Skull and Bones isn't the only game to suffer this fate either. Poor management is a publisher-wide issue, from Beyond Good and Evil 2, which has been in development for nearly 15 years and is still nowhere near completion, to X Defiant, the free-to-play first-person shooter developed by Ubisoft San Francisco, which has faced near monthly internal delays because of last-minute decisions to include additional features that break the current build. Oops. And then back to the office. This is the next section they go through. There's just one thing after another with this. It's crazy. In September 2023, staff at Ubisoft Montreal, some 4,000 employees returned to the office after nearly 3 years of working from home due to COVID-19. The decision was met with harsh criticism from Montreal employees, but also company-wide, which fell on deaf ears. Now, just months later, Ubisoft has started to roll out return to office mandates across the company, with the general rule of thumb to see staff having to return to office for a minimum of 2 days per week company-wide. One such mandate set to go in force in full effect on April 2nd, 2024 will see the entire global publishing group return to those compulsory 2 days. In the policy shared with Insider Gaming under the condition that it doesn't go public, the policy outlines that Tuesday will be a mandatory office day, with employees being able to agree on the second day with their line manager. Similar policies across the company are also being enforced, with some employees outlining that they fear it's just the beginning of enforcing full-time mandated office or return to office. After all, one justification for the mandates is that the company sees 2 days in office per week as a compromise, as other companies in the industry require employees to be in the office more days per week. The result has left employees in uproar as they frantically scramble for daycare and take care of other arrangements, as well as expressing the obvious concerns over travel and its reliability, cost, and time, something that many employees didn't need to consider when accepting jobs. This is the big thing. It's like, I am of the mind that, like, at the end of the day, it's a company that's paying you. If they require you to work in the office, that's what they do, and you go to the office and you work in the office. If they offer you to work from home, that's a perk. That's awesome. That's cool. But at the end of the day, it's a job. Like, they're gonna probably have requirements that you don't love. I also, like, as you guys know, like, I've done a good amount of study in the realm of management and things, and there are conflicting reports and studies. Some studies say that in certain fields, work from home, there's consistent levels of productivity. Other companies or other industries, they have pretty clear data that suggests that working from home leads to a lot of wasted company resources, where people are like playing games during office hours and are slower to like respond to communications and stuff. And so I think it's just, honestly, it's a company by company, employee by employee thing. At the end of the day, like, some employees are really productive at home. Some employees are way more productive at home, but there are also a lot of employees that are more productive in the office. Like, that is a thing. And I feel like a lot of the time when we discuss this kind of thing, there is no acknowledgement of the flip side. Because, like, yeah, some people super productive at home. A lot of people find working from home to be very distractible. You know, there's a lot of things to pull your attention away. The problem, though, is that a lot of employees currently working there have accepted the jobs with the understanding they'd work from home. So, like, they don't have a babysitter. They stay home with their kids and work in between watching the kids. Or, you know, they live far away from the office. Maybe they live an hour away, or 2, 3, 4 hours away, you know? There's all sorts of things that could tie into it that they didn't necessarily consider when they took the job, since it's been, at this point, 3 going on 4 years that they have not had to be in the office. So I think with all this, I don't blame them for wanting to have employees come back to the office. I understand, like, most people who really love work from home love it because I'm sure it improves your day-to-day life. I'm sure, like, when I was able to work from home when I was in commercial real estate, like, those were my favorite days because I didn't have to drive an hour and 15 minutes to Denver every morning. So I love those days. I'm also going to tell you right here, right now, I was way more productive when I was in the office. Way more. Not even close. Not even close. Because if I had a quick question and I was like, ooh, this client, this lead, I have a note on here that he knows my boss. So before I call him, I'm just going to go hop up out of my little cubicle. I'm going to walk over to the boss's office. I'm going to knock, ask him, hey, do you know Tom Smith? Oh, yeah. What's going on? Well, I was going to call him. Can you offer me some pointers about him? Anything I need to know? He gives me that information. I go back to my cubicle and I do it. Working from home, it's like, oh, I see that. And I try to call my boss. He doesn't pick up because he's on the phone with somebody else. And he's like, I'll get back to you in a minute. And then I just kind of sit around waiting for 10, 15 minutes. I probably get a little distracted. I watch a YouTube video and then he still hasn't responded. So I text him again. No response. I text him again. Then I try calling him again. And it just keeps going. And tons of time is wasted. I was way more productive in the actual office. Now, that was just me. Other people might be different. But for me, way more productive in the actual office. Yeah, I can easily waste time at the office too. Smoke breaks, coffee breaks, going to the other cubicles and talk. This goes both ways. Absolutely. No, and that's why it's a person to person difference. But at the end of the day, my view is that it's like the company is paying you. If the company wants you to be in the office, you have the right to leave the company, and the company should consider that loss of talent when they make these decisions. But like, it's just ultimately like, if the company thinks that you're going to be more productive in the office, that's why they're bringing you back to the office. If they thought you were going to be more productive at home, they would have done that and allowed you to keep it. So it's just, it's an unfortunate thing that now people that have accepted these jobs are going to lose money to daycare and have to lose money to buying a nicer car or another car to commute to work every morning. Like, it generally sucks, because when they accepted the job, this wasn't a thing, and now it's a thing, or it's going to be a thing. And it just kind of sucks. But it was going to end eventually, I think, because the work from home thing, I don't think was super sustainable. Unfortunately, the years of constant delays and out of touch decisions have hindered the reputation of the company with players. Resentment is being felt, with some employees believing that it's now being reflected in player numbers. In early January, Ubisoft released one of its highest rated Metacritic games in the past decade, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. The game hit a height of 88 on Switch with its critic score and a 9.1 user score, leading many to believe that the game could already be in the running for several Game of the Year awards. Despite the impressive scores, though, the game has around 300,000 players at the time of writing, estimating 15 million in revenue. As Jor Raptor pointed out during the podcast, there is sort of something you just have to note. Like, this number of 300,000 players includes Ubisoft Plus memberships and players that got it that way. So it doesn't necessarily mean that 300,000 people bought the game. And it also, like, if you buy it through PlayStation Store, they take 30%. So it's not actually 15. It's probably more like 10 to 12 million has actually been generated. So not a whole lot. It was probably a cheaper game to make, but I don't think it was a 15 million or 12 million dollar game. Over the lifetime, maybe it does 15 to 20 million in revenue before, all is said and done, but that's not a whole lot. Hopefully it was a cheaper game to produce, and maybe they can break even. Avatar, this game was kind of crazy. They missed the initial launch next to the movie, which definitely hindered its success. After several delays, the game landed in December with limited marketing. It was weird, like, they really didn't spend a whole lot putting it out there. I don't really know why, especially for a Disney thing. I don't know if it was maybe they were limited on the part of Disney, and they, like, maybe that was a limitation that actually hurt them. I don't know. But they didn't market it very heavily, and it still sold probably about a couple million units, but it might just barely break even when all is said and done. Maybe. Yeah, usually a good indicator to me for like how much money has been poured into like the marketing of a game is like when I'm making thumbnails for videos and stuff. You can usually go to what's called a press package, and it's a collection of like screenshots and video clips and wallpapers and stuff that the marketing team has designed for the game to be used by content creators and stuff when making their content. And so it can be really, really useful when making thumbnails and everything. Usually games that have a big marketing push have a lot of things available. Lots of high production value art, lots of screenshots, lots of wallpapers, lots of all sorts of stuff. With Avatar, I think there were 3. Like, there was almost nothing for that game. It was really, really freaking weird. I don't know why. Honestly, I thought if any game was going to get a ton of marketing support, it would be Avatar, being backed by Disney, but no, for some reason they just didn't. It was really strange. Really, really strange. And then Mirage, which Mirage actually seems to have done quite well. So Mirage seems to be the really, really solid performer out of all of these. Not all doom and gloom, though. This is the perhaps most interesting thing. Star Wars Outlaws is currently slated for the first half of 2024. And then Codename Red, which is the Japanese Assassin's Creed game, that's currently slated for the second half of this year. And Tom Henderson later said in a tweet that he expects Star Wars Outlaws, it's rumored that it's coming in May, just a few short months away. Now, that means that it's probably a bit of a whirlwind of marketing. Like, you could reasonably expect to see like a announcement on Ubisoft social media where they're like, hey, next week we're going to be coming out and revealing some maybe an extensive look at Star Wars Outlaws, and then they drop releasing May the 4th. Not really, it's because I think that's a Saturday, so it wouldn't really work, but probably like May 2nd or maybe later in May. More gameplay details to come soon, and then it's just a flood of trailers, of gameplay looks, of all sorts of stuff to kind of ramp it up and get it out the door. I think they were kind of in a tough spot because they have Avatar in December, like December 9th, I think it was. And then they had Prince of Persia in, I guess that was early January, I think, mid-January. And now they're going into Skull and Bones in like a week or two. And then seemingly they're going to go straight towards Star Wars Outlaws. So it seems like they're just waiting until Skull and Bones is out the door, and then they're going to go full speed, guns a-blazing on Star Wars Outlaws. And that could be kind of a crazy whirlwind of marketing. But I think that could be really cool because everybody I've seen that has looked at Star Wars seems very, very intrigued. Ubisoft could actually have a really strong year with these two games if they actually hold up. That could flip the vibe a little bit, but they have to be more consistent. Like, they can't do this thing where they have a good game and then like 4 flops, and then they waste hundreds of millions of dollars on 12 battle royales that didn't go anywhere, and then a bunch of NFT projects that didn't go anywhere. They gotta focus and figure it out, and hopefully they're starting to get into that groove now. But it's just crazy that basically a decade has been wasted on projects that, for the most part, were not fully fleshed out, and there were also hundreds of millions of dollars wasted on things that were not useful or productive, which is just madness. So all told, Ubisoft has some things in the works. They've got some pots on the stove, they're cooking, and we're gonna see what actually comes of it. But I'm optimistic. I think they actually could have a pretty solid year if they're able to deliver on all of this. But it's just, I mean, it's at the end of the day, all of this just lands on the games. You know, it's like what was it, Hans Niemann, I think it is, where he was like, you know, the chess speaks for itself when he was accused of cheating. For that, like for this, it's the games speak for themselves. If the games end up being really good, if Star Wars Outlaws ends up being really good, it'll sell well because it looks really good. And with Assassin's Creed Red, it's a game that people are very interested in the setting. They're interested in Assassin's Creed as a franchise. They just have to have a good game. And so now the ball is entirely in their court. It is entirely in their court. Like it's all on them. They just have to deliver a solid game that people want to play. Crazy, right? Crazy concept. But if they can do it, it could be a turnaround point, but we'll see. He took my thing.